A lot of comparisons have been made between the Exxon Valdez oil spill and the current Gulf of Mexico oil spill. While the two events are unique and happen under different circumstances and different ecosystems, the best way to predict the future of the Gulf Coast is to look at the past in Alaska. And if history is any indication, the residents along the Gulf Coast are facing a tremendous environmental disaster, followed by decades of legal battles against BP. Joining me now to talk about this is Bob Shavelson, who's been a frequent guest on our show. He's the executive director of Cook Inlet Keeper of Alaska, and he is the Cook Inlet Keeper. Welcome back, Bob.
Thanks, Bobby. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, so tell us about, the Casey Calloway, who's the Mobile Bay Keeper. Her estimates is that we could be dealing with 100,000 barrels a day from this volcano at the bottom of the ocean that BP created. That at 42 gallons per barrel, that's 4.2 million barrels a day. The Exxon Valdez was around 11 million barrels. So this is an Exxon Valdez every 3 days, and it's going to go on for 90 days probably. Would tell us about what your experience was with the Valdez and what the experience is up there. In many cases, the fisheries in Valdez and in Prince William Sound, in many cases, have not come back.
That's true. And what we're seeing in the Gulf with British Petroleum is that they are reading and implementing the Exxon playbook. And we saw that very early on. They came out right out of the gates lying about the spill volume. They continued to lie. They continued to frustrate efforts to get at that. They're covering up data. They're not protecting their workers. They're sending in lawyers and lobbyists and their PR hacks. And they're going to fight to the end like Exxon did on making payments and making these communities whole. You know, Exxon, one of their top managers stood in front of a crowd in Cordova, which is in Prince William Sound, and told that community, "We will make you whole."
You have Exxon, and we do business straight. We will consider whatever it takes to keep you whole.
And then the lawyers went in and fought a 20-year fight and took it up to the Supreme Court and saw a $5 billion punitive damage award reduced to $500 million.
And what about the impacts on the fisheries?
Well, the herring fishery in Prince William Sound is gone. And it collapsed very shortly after the spill, and it's completely gone. That was a very lucrative fishery, so that's gone. It's very difficult to understand the changes and what you can attribute to the spill and what's, for example, climate change and other larger systemic changes. But we also know that there's a transient pod of orca whales that got hammered by the spill, and they certainly haven't recovered. So there were fundamental ecosystem changes in the Prince William Sound as a result of the Exxon spill.
A lot of people are frightened that the culture of the Gulf Coast is going to be impacted by this spill and may even disappear. What happened to the communities in Prince William Sound?
They're absolutely devastated. These events, you can compare it to war, and you have aspects of post-traumatic stress syndrome that linger for years and years. You know, I mentioned the town of Cordova, which is at ground zero for the spill and the base for some of the richest fisheries in the world. You know, their mayor committed suicide in light of all the angst and stress and upheaval that was associated with the Exxon Valdez.
And how about the people? How about the fishing communities?
The fishing communities, they employ a divide and conquer. They'll pay a lot of people. They'll pay people a lot of money to go out and clean up oil. That puts them out on the water. It puts them away from the shore where they can organize and they can get together and they can amplify their voice. Some other people, either for philosophical or other reasons, choose not to take that money, and that creates divides within the community. We had things here after the Exxon Valdez, people were called spillionaires, people that made a lot of money just taking Exxon spill response jobs and going out and doing silly jobs and, pushing buckets around or pushing booms around. And it created a lot of animosity within the community and a lot of infighting.
Are there still fishing boats in Valdez today that are picking up salmon fisheries, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean the salmon fisheries in the Sound are doing fairly decently, but one of the most important things that came out of the Exxon Valdez is is the scientific research that was funded that showed that oil is many, many times more toxic than we previously understood. And it's not just toxic in the acute sense where, you oil a bird or a fish and it dies. It's toxic in the chronic long-term sense. And what they showed in Prince William Sound was that a very small amount of oil, like 1 part per billion, when it's introduced at the larval stage for salmon, for example, can have an effect that reduces that fish's ability to escape prey or to return to its natal stream. And so you have an overall lowering in the fitness and therefore a population level impact from spills that can last decades.
You call this a kind of war, and in many ways, this is an act of war. If a foreign enemy did this to our country, we would go to war with it. How should we be handling BP?
Well, I think the Obama administration's been handling BP with kid gloves. They're allowing BP to disobey orders from the EPA, for example, on dispersants. If Obama was going to show some leadership, he would declare a national emergency. He would require BP to answer to the administration on specific things, require transparency, showing the true volume of the spill, for example. BP has tried to downplay that and say it's irrelevant, and they've actually gotten support from some of our administration higher-ups. And nothing can be more ludicrous than that, because if you don't know the volume of the spill, you don't know what spill response assets you need. And BP certainly wants to downplay the volume of the spill because it's also going to minimize the damages they pay on the back end. So the Obama administration should declare a national emergency, get on these people. If they disobey orders, start throwing people in jail. And BP has a long track record of corporate criminality. In Texas several years ago, the refinery explosion killed 15 people. Up here in Alaska, they have massive pipeline spills on the North Slope where they're on criminal probation. The question has to be asked, when do we take away the social license that we give these corporations to operate if they're going to willfully violate the law and kill people in the process?